This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
President Xi Jinping hosts a meeting on the coronavirus epidemic. All eyes in South Sudan as unity government takes shape hours before deadline. And International Organization for Migration raises alarm about fate of migrants in Libya detention camps. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers, and here with the latest in business is Uche.
Thank you, Hannah. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Ghana to spend over $900 million to refund deposits held at failed lenders. And AngloGold's annual earnings surged 72% on higher gold prices. All that coming up within the program. For now, back to you, Hannah.
Thank you so much, Uche. We will see you in a bit. Well, our reporters are standing by with the latest at this hour. In Juba, South Sudan, CGTN's Patrick Yet is keeping an eye on the developments as President Salva Kiir and opposition leader Riek Machar revealed to the world the shape of their unity government. And from Katuna, at the common border between Uganda and Rwanda, our correspondent Hilary Ayesiga has the latest from the meeting between Presidents Yoweri Museveni and Paul Kagame. Africa Live begins now. Well, we start with the latest on the COVID-19 outbreak. The total number of confirmed cases in China has surpassed 75,000. The death toll stands at over 2,200. More than 18,000 people have recovered. The number of new confirmed cases saw a rise on Thursday after a week of falls as several prisons reported a large number. The majority of confirmed infections on Hubei province, more than 62,000 so far. Guangdong, Zhejiang, and Henan provinces are the next most affected, each reporting more than 1,200 cases. Beijing has reported 396 and Shanghai 334. The virus has spread to 27 other countries, which altogether have reported over 1,200 cases. Japan is the second worst hit country with 2 deaths and over 700 cases. Most of these have been aboard the quarantined cruise ship Diamond Princess. Meanwhile, South Korea reported 100 cases on Friday, bringing the country's total to over 200. Iran also reported 13 new cases and 2 new deaths on Friday, and Israel and Lebanon have each confirmed their first case. Well, Chinese President Xi Jinping hosted a meeting on the COVID-19 epidemic in China. At the meeting, President Xi spoke highly of the country's efforts to contain the virus, but stressed that a turning point had not yet been reached, despite the falling number of cases. He went on to say that COVID-19 was having a noticeable economic impact on China, but the strain could not undermine the foundation of the country's long-term development. President Xi said a priority now was safeguarding the jobs of returning rural migrant workers to the country's big cities, especially from poverty-stricken areas. How to help businesses and restore economic activity was also on the meeting's agenda. President Xi also emphasized the importance of international cooperation to support research in medicines and vaccines and to boost development in biomedicine, medical equipment, 5G, and industrial networks. We'll turn our attention to South Africa now, where a choir group has expressed solidarity with China over the coronavirus outbreak through song and messages of support. Students from the University of Western Cape performed the Chinese national anthem and various other melodies. Their message is that Chinese people are not alone in this difficult time.
I'm here this evening because we are in solidarity with the Chinese society, the Chinese people as a whole, and also with the world. We came here together today as a choir because we wanted to show that we feel the same pain, the same emotion and confusion that the world is currently going through.
And also we want to send a strong message out there to people who may be doubting Chinese people wherever they are in the world. We are saying to the people, please isolate the virus and not the people. We are not to discriminate anybody, but it is the virus that we must fight against and support the people.
Meanwhile, a classical pianist from Morocco has also been sharing his message of support with China through music. Let's take a listen.
亲爱的中国朋友，我知道你们正在面临巨大的挑战，但是，请相信你们并不孤单，我们一直惦记你们。我相信胜利属于你们，属于中国。你们会比以前更加坚强。中国，加油！
Well, moving on to other news that's making headlines. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir and opposition chief Riek Machar have expected to reveal to the world the shape of the unity government. This after they agreed to meet the deadline, which expires on Saturday. President Kiir agreed to appoint Machar as first vice president by end of Friday and provide all the members of the former opposition with protection. The deadline to form an interim government has been postponed twice in the past year. CGTN's Patrick Oyet is following the events there. He now joins us live from the South Sudanese capital, Juba. Thank you so much for joining us. Patrick, what is the latest from Juba and what remains to be done within the next 12 hours or so?
Hannah, what I can confirm to you now is that as we were just going on air, the President Salva Kiir has also now started dissolving his former government. That is, now we know that first Vice President, former Taban Dengai, has been relieved. The national ministers are also being relieved now. So this is an ongoing process. As we talk now, it is going on. So we expect that when they finish dissolving the government, the next is going to be formation of the government. At least within the next 30 to 40 minutes, this will be done. I can also tell you that the Sudan's Prime Minister, who is the chair of IGAD, is here in Juba. He has come for the swearing-in ceremony, which is now scheduled for tomorrow at 10 GMT. Also, IGAD special envoy is in town. The special envoy from Kenya to South Sudan is also around. We expect also South Africa's deputy president, we understand, will be here tomorrow also for the swearing in, which is scheduled for tomorrow, 10G. So that is exactly what is happening now. The much awaited government is finally being formed. And also, of course, this comes with a lot of challenges. There are still challenges that are lying ahead for the new government that is coming in place. Of course, even today, we just had a chance to talk to the IGAD special envoy, who was saying that yes, a new government is coming in place, but he's asking the new government to actually be accommodative, to be inclusive, to accept others who are still outside, because there are still armed groups that are still fighting this government. They are not part of the current peace arrangement. There's a peace talk going on in Rome to accommodate them in. So they are asking, or the IGAD is asking still the new government that will come to allow those people to come in so that war ends in the country once and for all. So you can take a look at some of the things we got during the day.
South Sudan's peace partners are promising a new government in the country by Saturday. However, for many here, nothing much has changed since the war began in 2013. Getting basic needs such as food and water remained a challenge. A 2018 peace deal brought about relative peace and farmers started cultivation. But floods late last year washed away crops from farms. The United Nations says now 5.5 million South Sudanese people are food insecure, and that figure will be 6 million by April this year.
The guns should be silenced permanently. Now, once that happens, and with safety and security and stability in the country, we really hope to be able to slowly move our focus away from emergency food operations, relief operations, to really focusing on building resilience, giving recovery to people, giving development opportunities to communities across the country.
There are also still armed groups who are not part of the current peace process, which poses a challenge to the current arrangement. Separate peace talks to bring those groups into the current peace process is ongoing in Rome. So even if a new government is set up in Juba, there will be concern over how to end violence once and for all in the country.
Our goal as IGAD is for the peace process in South Sudan to be as inclusive and participatory as possible, and we will do all that it is within our mandate and power to ensure that no one is left behind.
6 years of civil war destroyed homes, and the United Nations says the war displaced more than 4 million people who have not got a chance to cultivate or carry out any meaningful economic activity. They continue to depend on food aid.
Cautious optimism is returning here. A similar peace arrangement in 2015 collapsed a year later, but the parties to the current peace deal say the would-be new government will bring lasting peace so that those displaced return to their own homes, begin cultivation, children start going to school and rebuilding their livelihoods. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Well, Uganda and Rwanda are yet to find a solution to long-standing diplomatic tensions. Four presidents of Rwanda, Uganda, Angola, and the Democratic Republic of Congo held a meeting at the Katuna border, but failed to reach an agreement on Friday to open the border and also ease tensions. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga is at the Rwanda-Uganda border, from where he now joins us live from this developing story. Sorry for that, Hilary. Hilary, thank you so much for joining us. The Rwanda-Uganda border will remain closed. What does this say about the meeting between President Museveni and Kagame?
Yeah, the meeting resolved that Uganda should address the concerns raised by Rwanda. Rwanda alleges that Uganda still has hostile forces to the government of Rwanda, and they are saying that they are operating on the territory, Uganda's territory, and so they resolved that Uganda should address these concerns, and they had to put an ultimatum of 1 month. Uganda should have addressed those concerns to reduce the tension on ground, and those concerns will have after the concerns have been addressed in 30 days. That's when they will reopen the border. and that's what was happening here. But this is what we were able to gather on ground during the meeting. Moving to ease diplomatic tension, Uganda and Rwanda have been meeting to resolve their differences. They have been at loggerheads for close to 12 months.
Whoever crosses Rwanda is killed. And we are saying, killing is not the best option. Killing is not the best option. These people may be paraded in other forms. The courts of law are there, so that life is saved. So we want to make an appeal to the presidents that peace must be really championed and ushered into this country if we have to have a meaningful, peaceful collaboration.
The two countries accuse each other of spying in an effort to destabilize one another's government. Both countries have been swapping prisoners, a condition set under the Angola Peace Accord to relax tensions. But Rwanda insists Uganda needs to do more to reach an amicable position. This has impacted negatively on regional trade. Katuna border was closed in February last year, and it has cost both countries millions of dollars. Traders here are optimistic that the ongoing talks could ease tension and also renew trade ties.
We want the border to be opened. The two leaders should agree, the presidents of Rwanda and Uganda. If they do not agree, we are the ones suffering.
Talks are expected to resume in the next 45 days. It's widely hoped the border will be opened by then and calm restored. Hilara Yesiga, CGTN, Kabale, Western Uganda.
Meanwhile, in Libya, the UN Migration Agency has reported that a rubber dinghy packed with 91 migrants and refugees has gone missing in the Mediterranean Sea. The inflatable boat departed from Al-Karbouli, 50 kilometers east of the Libyan capital, Tripoli. The IOM says that it was carrying mostly African migrants who made the journey 2 weeks ago in the hopes of reaching Europe. This news comes amid criticism of a lack of rescue missions by the EU. Well, of the migrants that do get rescued in the Mediterranean, most are brought back to Libyan shores. But with the latest attack on a port in Tripoli, the UN Migration Agency has been urging the international community to find a safe disembarkation mechanism for migrants fleeing Libya. TGTN's Adel El-Marouhi has more.
The dire conditions of migrants in Libya are once again under the spotlight. Warnings from the UN's International Organization for Migration came after airstrikes launched by Khalifa Haftar's LNA forces against a seaport in Tripoli. Since the year began, at least 1,700 migrants have been intercepted in the Mediterranean and returned to Libya. 300 of them were on Wednesday alone, following the recent strikes. In Libya, they are squeezed in overcrowded detention camps. 74% of migrants do not get any health care or have access to minimum resources, according to the IOM. It has been calling Libya to end these detention facilities. IOM wants the international community to expand their search and rescue services in the Mediterranean Sea. The organization has urged Mediterranean nations to take equal responsibilities in providing ports of safety to people rescued at the sea. 10 months of escalated civil war to control the capital Tripoli have seen conditions get worse for Libyans and migrants there. Adel El-Marouhi, CGTN, Cairo.
Well, it's time now for us to take a show break. In return, here's what you can expect. As world marks International Mother Language Day, we take a look at African languages on the verge of extinction. And will Google's ambitious internet program protect Africa's children from cyber criminals?
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Well, as the world marks Mother Language Day, one community in Kenya is battling to save its language. The Yaku people started living among the Maasai community long ago, and their native Yakunte language is on the brink of extinction. CGTN's Wilkes Tanyawa reports on the community's efforts to revive this part of their heritage.
The words that roll off the elderly man's tongue are unfamiliar to the children. So he accompanies his words with gestures, naming body parts in the Yakunte language. It is ancient but rarely spoken and might soon disappear altogether. There are about 10,000 Yaku people left in Kenya's Rift Valley region, and Rashid is just one of the 10 people here who can speak the language fluently.
My mother taught me the language as a child, then I learnt more by listening to the elders.
The Yaku people are believed to have migrated from Ethiopia before they settled in Kenya's Mukogodu forest. They started out as hunters and gatherers, but as they interacted with their neighbors, the Samburu and the Maasai pastoralist communities, their culture and language changed.
When they came of age, the young Yakunte men and women met and intermarried with the local communities.
The Maasai dominated the Yaku. Before long, the lines between the two communities were blurred. Today, the Yaku are considered a sub-tribe of the Maasai, and Yakunte is one of the languages in Kenya that have been classified by UNESCO as almost extinct. The others include El Molo, Ogiek, Omotik, and Suba. But members of the Yaku community are now making efforts to revive the language. Rashid teaches his grandchildren the language at home, but there are plans for the village elders to teach the language at the local primary school, while other teams work with the remaining Yakunte speakers to publish the Yakunte dictionary. The Yaku Laikipia Trust, which is spearheading these efforts, also plans to set up a museum with Yaku artifacts. Locals dream of a revival of their culture and language.
It would be bad if the language disappeared before we learned it. We want to learn what they called houses, fire, how they shared greetings. We want to know everything.
But getting funding to do just that is proving difficult.
When we started this thing, we wanted to revive this language, to document, to keep in record, to come to get people who can teach this language. Where can we get the resource of keeping these people to continue?
With speakers of the Yaku language getting older, time to save it is fast running out.
I really want to see the language revived so that when we die, the children continue to speak it.
And locals fear that if their efforts to save their language are unsuccessful, in a few years these words will fade from their lips and their minds until nothing remains except a faint whisper of a language gone with the wind. For members of the Yaku community, every phrase and every word in this language is precious, and though the situation is dire, they continue to make every effort to preserve the language and the culture for future generations. Wilkes Anyabwa, CGTN in Doldol, Kenya.
Well, Nigeria has around 500 local languages, but quite a number of them are also close to extinction. According to UNESCO, about 29 Nigerian languages are now classified as most endangered and could become extinct soon. One startup in Nigeria is now doing everything it can to save the country's local languages, but it's not been easy. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmos with more.
With a population of about 200 million people, Nigeria is one of the most diverse countries in the world when it comes to languages. No less than 500 indigenous languages are spoken in the country, but English is the official language, and it's because Nigeria was colonized by Britain. The widespread use of the English language is now threatening local languages. In fact, some local languages are now going extinct. But this young man is determined to prevent the drift. Valentine Ubalwa's startup known as Nicademia is using technology to preserve and promote the use of local languages.
Nicademia is actually an acronym for Nigerian Academia. It's actually an educational startup aimed in producing, using animation as a tool in teaching kids between the ages of 3 to 11 our culture and our language.
Nicademia animations are produced in Nigerian and African languages and syndicated on local TV channels as well as online.
And so far we have over 500 animations in various Nigerian and African languages. We have in Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, Arabic, Swahili. We currently air our cartoons on 7 TV channels, and we have about 2 million kids watching our cartoons weekly. We also have educational tablets that we produce and package these tablets, and we sold about 3,000 units. Then we have a mobile app, where parents all over the world can download on their devices and teach the kids. So that's where we are right now, and that's how far we've gone.
The initiative has been self-funded so far, and Ubalwa says their resources are overstretched. That is seriously limiting their capacity to scale and cover more Nigerian and African languages.
We imagine when we have the right support, the right partners to push this content. We try working with telecoms, and nobody wants to pay. Then I ask myself, this thing that you produce wasn't produced for free. You used money to produce. I didn't expect you to produce my content.
In order to get returns for their efforts, Ubalwa and his team are now targeting Africans in the diaspora with their contents. But whether the returns will be enough to sustain their project and keep it going is another thing altogether. If not, then their idea may just suffer the same fate as the local languages they are trying to save. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Somalia has been witnessing significant transformation in recent years, among them education. CGTN's Abdulaziz Billah reports from Mogadishu on how schools are struggling to accommodate both English and Somali as languages of instruction in schools.
Adan Ugas is a language teacher at this popular school in the Somali capital, Mogadishu. He is teaching students about poetry. His choice of poem today is about Somalia's Independence Day. The Somali society is synonymous with poetry and has a long-standing oratory tradition. Ugas is among a few teachers in this school who teach using Somali, the country's official language.
I teach the mother tongue to high school students in this school. It is important for them to know the importance and value of knowing their mother tongue. They take lessons in English mostly, but they love my class. We have a good number of Somalis from diaspora who are here to learn the Somali language.
In one of the classes, we meet Abdulaziz Saeed, a third-year high school student. He says the Somali language lesson is his favorite, as all other sessions in the school are mostly conducted using English.
I love learning through my mother tongue, the Somali language. Every nation has its own. Therefore, it gives me great happiness to receive education through my language. It makes me feel proud since it's a language that dates back many years.
Across the country, most schools provide education using the local language. Somali remains the official language of the country and the language of instruction in schools in many subjects, including the recently launched educational curriculum in the country. After completing high school or university, many students here in Somalia prefer to travel abroad for further studies in countries that use English as the medium of instruction in their schools. To address the increasing needs, many private institutions are now embracing English as the language of communication in their schools.
During English lessons, we try to emphasize the use of that language. We explain different words using the same language, and we don't include the mother tongue. This is because we want students to develop the use of foreign languages as a motivation after they leave school.
Meanwhile, across the country, young people have created book fairs and reading clubs in a move aimed at encouraging local writers showcase their skills using the mother language. Organizers say the objective is to promote the awareness of language and cultural diversity. Abdulaziz Billah, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Meanwhile, Zimbabweans have also been speaking about their languages and how the country's constitution recognizes them.
In Zimbabwe, the constitution that we have that was adopted in 2013 speaks to these issues, to say that at least 16 languages, local languages, are recognized in this country. And that on its own speaks to the preservation of those languages. But you also want to look at it and say, you want to have that in your school's curricula.
It is through language that one's personhood is preserved. So without language, then that personhood, or what we would term Ubuntu, would be lost. So the criticality of language comes in the way then we respect our language, as it is a vehicle through which our heritage is passed from generation to generation.
Our education system is supposed to be based on our language, because once you are taught in a different language, then you are disconnected from your environment. Then when you are disconnected from your environment, you cannot come up with solutions for your environment. That's why you find out in our country, we can't come up with solutions for our country because we address our problems using a different language that does not relate to our environment.
U.S. tech giant Google is trying to make the cyber world safer. The company launched a landmark internet safety program for children on the African continent to help protect against pornography, abuse, and cyberbullying. Through the Be Internet Awesome, it provides online tips and tools for parents, teachers, and young people to safely navigate the internet. CGTN's Julie Shire has more.
In the age of hashtags and real-time status updates, the internet puts information at our fingertips. We're able to connect easier with family and friends through social media. But there's a dark side, especially for children who are more vulnerable to human trafficking, sexual predators, and cyber bullies.
People always criticize my height, telling me that I'm not worthy of doing anything, but I always bear in mind that everything will be all right and I'll get help maybe someday. Sometimes I cry a lot because sometimes I feel like I'm not alive. I'm not worthy of being alive in this world, but only God knows how are my feelings.
So many people on the internet, I feel like they don't concern some people's feelings. They just say words and don't know how do the person feel, or how do the person will reply, or if he or she will go to the police or do something that is not great.
To create a safer passage, Google has launched its Be Internet Awesome program. 175,000 children experience the internet for the first time on a daily basis. The initiative encourages youngsters to be brave, kind, and cautious on the net.
So we're bringing it to Africa for the first time in South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria, where kids and parents and teachers get to work together on what it means to be safe online. So it's training tools, it's tips online, it's a game that allows them to really just understand what are some of the risks online.
South Africa's Film and Publications Board says child pornography is its biggest concern. Sexual predators coax minors into sharing private images and information about themselves through grooming.
They form a relationship with the child with the purpose of abusing them later, right? So most of the time it's for the purpose of sexual abuse. So a person will befriend a child, be nice to them, form a relationship so the child is comfortable enough to be open with them and to be honest with them, and that's when they take advantage.
If this is what you're experiencing, report it to your teacher, report it to your parent, report it, and the parent and the teacher have a responsibility to inform the police because it has emotional and psychological scars. We're involving also social workers that are around the schools to ensure that our kids are able to cope.
Google has made $1 million available for programs addressing privacy and internet safety in Africa. There are laws to protect minors, but policing is a challenge. Perpetrators hide their identities and are hard to track down. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, I'll be back in a bit with more current affairs, but for now, here is your business news with Uche.
Thanks, Hannah. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. Ghana to spend over $900 million to refund deposits held at failed lenders. And AngloGold's annual earnings surge 72% on higher gold prices.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving.
The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Well, let's start off in Ghana. The country is set to spend $937 million to refund money that was locked up when the country closed down scores of second-tier lenders and microcredit firms. Now, President Nana Akufo-Addo says the payments will be done once the process to validate all the claims is completed. Back in 2017, Akufo-Addo's administration embarked on a financial sector cleanup. The move followed years of poor governance and weak regulatory oversight. The exercise, according to the president, has so far cost his government and taxpayers over $2.2 million. Now, while it has helped stabilize Ghana's banking sector, it has also added to the country's debt, which the IMF estimates rose to 63% of GDP by the end of 2019. Now, after closing its land borders to trade last August, headline inflation in Nigeria continues to soar. The latest data indicates it rose to 12.13% in January, which is close to a two-year high. Now, Nigerian authorities say the border closures were meant to stop cross-border smuggling of goods, but it's also pushed prices on basic commodities, especially food, even higher. While CGTN's Deji Badmus explores the response from Nigeria's central bank.
When at its last meeting in January, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria increased the cash reserve ratio for deposit money banks for the first time in about 4 years, it was literally to check rising inflation in the country. But the latest inflation figure from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics is a clear indication that measure has at least not yet had much of an effect.
The issue we have is not a monetary policy problem. Monetary policy solution cannot deal with the issue of inflation, because in spite of all of this, prices are still going up. So that means that we should be looking more at the fiscal policy side.
The current rate of 12.13% is the highest in 21 months and the fifth rise in 5 consecutive months. Many have blamed Nigeria's border closure, which has lasted for several months now, for the spike in inflation. But some analysts say there are many more other causes, especially in the country's agriculture sector.
Productivity in the agricultural sector is very low, because most of those who are operators in the sector are still operating at a very small scale. Many of them are smallholder farmers. They have limited application of technology. They don't have quality seedlings. So all of these things are affecting productivity in the sector, therefore affecting supply and therefore affecting prices. There's also this factor of security. Many of the farming communities have been affected by the security problem that we have. And these are the people that produce the food that we eat domestically.
The biggest worry for many is that the current spike in inflation is mainly driven by higher food prices, something that directly affects the ordinary citizen on the street. The question now is, for how long will the inflation level increase before it begins to beat a retreat?
The inflation that we have is essentially cost-driven. It's what you call cost-push inflation. For as long as we are not able to address some of these key drivers, particularly the element of cost, for so long will these prices will continue to be high.
With global oil prices trending close to Nigeria's budget benchmark price of $57 per barrel, the country might be thrown into a currency crisis that could further exacerbate the inflation situation and bring Nigeria's economy under much more severe pressure. It's indeed a very tough time for managers of Africa's biggest economy. Deji Badmus, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
And South Africa's AngloGold Ashanti has posted an expected 72% leap in annual earnings. The firm attributes the growth to higher bullion prices and a solid performance from its Kibali operations in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, in the year ending December 31st, 2019, the gold miner reported headline earnings per share of 91 cents. That's up from 53 cents the previous year. Last week, AngloGold said it will sell its remaining South African assets to Harmony Gold for about $300 million to focus on assets that deliver higher returns. Well, let's head to China now. The country resumes its near-normal economic production following the COVID-19 outbreak. African countries are hoping the impact of the disruption will be minimal. Well, CGTN's Angelo Coppola spoke to a South African business analyst about the turnaround prospects for China and its African trading partners. Let's listen in.
So tell me about the impact of the outbreak on the Chinese economy.
From I hear anecdotally from a lot of our clients in this part of the world, supply chains being disrupted, companies who are obviously importing from China. And secondly, what I'm more concerned about longer term, particularly for longer term this year at least, is the export profile, export basket of commodities from Africa into China. China's economy almost, you could say, has been largely been shut for the last 2-3 months. This will have a very negative knock-on effect on GDP growth, I would argue, for the rest of this year.
So having said that, what's likely to happen? What are the Chinese government likely to do to get their economy back on track?
Well, of course, they'll seek to accelerate the movement back into factories, largely dependent on, I'm told, as of yesterday, 70% of migrant labour still has yet to return. But they'll see a fast track there, a pump primary economy, greater liquidity, reduced interest rates, trying to sort of create a more sort of, boosting consumer sentiment, trying to catch up for the rest of the year. It couldn't have come at a worse time for China.
We know what the government should be doing, but what would you suggest as an add-on to what they're currently doing?
The sense of crisis should not be there in terms of policy making, but I think a more, should we say, gentle pulling of levers in the economy compared to what took place 10 or 11, 12 years ago would help China sort of again look to again, it's not about quantitative headline growth. The 6% figure seemingly is the new sort of, before it was 8, then it was 7, now it's 6. But ultimately, Chinese qualitative growth, not quantitative. And the traditional focus, traditionally, has always been quantitative. Let's not get hung up on the growth figure itself. Rather look at the quality thereof.
We've touched on what the Chinese are doing about getting the economy restarted. What about African countries and their trade relations with China? What's going to happen there?
I've seen through a sort of an East Africa lens, we see coffee prices down. Last article I read was down by a third in a space of a month and a half. So that's very negative for coffee exports. Think Uganda, think Rwanda, think Ethiopia, Kenya, the like into China. But it's really trying to figure out, well, this lack of purchasing and lack of demand of commodities, be it soft or hard commodities, from Africa, not just us, it's Latin America, it's Australia as well, of course, will have a very negative effect, and that's going to have a negative knock on African growth forecasts as well. I think many of us African states have yet to quite understand the impact. Hopefully, it's a short-term one, but nevertheless a negative one.
Now, Chinese companies operating at all levels of the solar sector have identified Brazil as a key market for overseas expansion. Now, despite the anti-environmental stance of President Bolsonaro, a range of Brazilian state organizations and regulators have swung their support behind the renewable energy boom. And now it looks set to revolutionize power production in South America's biggest country. Here's CGTN's Terry Wangari with more.
This solar farm, about 150 kilometers from Sao Paulo, produces electricity for around 40 homes and small businesses, from restaurants to gyms. Such distributed generations, better known as DG, have been multiplying in Brazil in recent years. Investors have been banking on the country's long hours of strong sunlight.
This plant generates energy for the distributed generation system. Our cooperative receives the plant solar energy credits. CPFL does the measurements, and my customers get a monthly percentage of the energy generated by the power plant. That credit comes in the electricity bill, with the discount in the client's account.
Corporate and private investors have also been boosting solar panel production in one of Brazil's few domestic manufacturing industries. Now working round the clock to meet demand is the Brazil unit of Chinese solar modules maker BYD. The firm opened its first factory in Brazil in 2015 and hopes to increase its market share from 20% last year to 35% this year. As well as selling its solar panels, BYD is developing its own generation projects, including the Aracatuba solar plant in Sao Paulo, to supply commercial customers. Until 2018, the firm only sold its solar modules to big projects.
We have almost 20 hours a day of production to meet the pipeline of orders. We're in February and maxed out with orders until April. There is huge demand and growth in solar photovoltaic, fueled by the Brazilian government's decision to not cut distributed generation.
BYD is not the only firm to identify opportunities in the Brazilian solar power sector. Canadian Solar has a plant in Brazil to assemble the modules with imported parts. Many Chinese companies such as Risen, Trina, Jinko and Yingli are also supplying the market. ABGD, which is a local DG group, estimates that 17,000 companies are working in Brazil with projects including equipment makers, distributors and installers. Terry Wangari, CGTN.
Well, that's all for now on Africa Live Biz, but coming up later on Global Business Africa, we'll be looking at the impact of the coronavirus epidemic on the global aviation sector. Do stay with us because more on that coming up top of the hour. For now, back to you.
Thank you so much, Uche. We will see you top of the hour, but for now, let's take a short break and return your sports news, including Ethiopia's Ababel Yeshana smashes the women's half marathon world record in the UAE.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Time now for your sport news. We start with athletics. Ethiopia's Ababel Yeshanan has smashed the women's half marathon world record by 20 seconds to win the Ras El Khaimah race in the United Arab Emirates on a Friday. Yeshana crossed the finish line in 1 hour, 4 minutes and 31 seconds at the World Athletics Gold Label Road Race, eclipsing the previous record of 1 hour, 4 minutes and 51 seconds set by Kenyan Jocelyn Valencia in 2017. Marathon world record holder Bridget Kosgei finished second, and her time was also 2 seconds inside Jepsekei's mark. Ishana's previous best time of 1 hour, 5 minutes and 46 seconds had stood as the Ethiopian record for 5 months between 2018 and 2019. Well, still in athletics, Uganda's para-athletes are confident of earning more slots at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics Summer Games. The East African nation is taking its biggest contingent to the International Para-Athletics meeting in Marrakesh, Morocco later this month. The athletes, as CGTN's Leon Seanga reports, continue facing challenges in their quest to make the Paralympics.
Fred Masisa lost his sight as an infant, but that did not stop him from doing sports.
When I was in my high school, senior one, when I had just joined, I went to Arua. For the first time, I was among, actually I didn't do bad, I was the second. Then from there to now, 2013 up to now, I've never been beaten in my race.
The The 23-year-old will now be representing Uganda at the International Para-Athletics meeting in the Moroccan city of Marrakesh this February. He will run the short distance races. Masisa wants to bring his country a medal.
In winning a medal in Africa for the first time, because it will have meant something great, that I am really progressing with my talent of sports, because since I started I'd never gone international.
Uganda will send 11 para-athletes to the meeting. It is the biggest contingent ever. The Marrakesh Games will be a new experience for the athletes. For many, it will also be the final opportunity to achieve qualification to the Paralympics. Richard Ochira is the only wheelchair cyclist on the team. He hopes he can make it to the Paralympic Games in Tokyo later this year.
If I qualify, I'll be going to Japan, which is going to be soon. So I have to go and qualify, and that is the toughest one, I think. So I have to work hard in Morocco.
For these para-athletes, just making the team to compete at the meet has been a good payoff for all their training. But it has been through adversity.
Like any other federations in the country, our major challenge is the financing and supporting Paralympic sport, because we use specific equipments. We need people to be much supported, because psychologically some think they cannot make it, so we need a number of support so that we can at least make them focus to achieve their goals.
Public perception about parasports has also been a major drawback, as few people are willing to support. But that has not put these athletes down. There have been some successes. Uganda's David Among won the country its first ever gold at the World Para-Athletics Championships in London 3 years ago. Leon Sanyanga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
To football now, where host Cameroon have declared their intention of winning the 2020 African Nations Championships in April following the draw conducted on Monday. The country's football association says that they will not underrate any team, beginning with Zimbabwe, whom they play in the opening match on the 4th of April before taking on Mali and Burkina Faso in Group A.
I think it's a tough group, whatever the case, because Mali, Cameroon, strong teams, and Zimbabwe is not so bad also. We have some professionals, many professionals. Certainly for AFCON, they have good team on AFCON. I think it means that they can also have good local players. And Burkina Faso, there's not small thing in this kind of a competition. If you manage to be qualified, it means that you're a good team. So we are taking very seriously our opponent, and we're going to play to give our best.
Elsewhere, Cairo Giants Zamalek are champions of the Egyptian Super Cup after edging out bitter rivals Al Ahly 4-3 on penalties in Abu Dhabi. 3 minutes after kickoff, Al Ahly almost got the opener, but Zamalek goalkeeper Mohamed Abu Gabal was too fast for Junior Ayaji. In the second half, it was all the same as both sides wasted precious chances through Yusuf Ibrahim and Mahmoud Kahraba in the shootout. Both sides scored 3 apiece, but Abu Gabal saved on Aliou Badji's penalty kick handed Zamalek the victory over their fiercest Cairo rivals. In the English Premier League, Leicester City manager Brendan Rodgers said that UEFA's